Council member.
Rodney Roberts, City Council.
Okay, before we dive in, are there any information items? I've got one or two.
I've got two. I've got a couple too.
Sounds like we have a full house on that. So let me just share this information. We hold council work sessions like tonight, Mondays and Wednesdays, several times a month to exchange information with important stakeholders, gather information from staff, advisory boards, residents. No votes or formal actions are ever taken in our work sessions. These work sessions, as well as our meetings, are open to the public except for executive sessions as authorized by state law so that residents and others can observe and sometimes weigh in on council's deliberations. We do strive to provide a reasonable opportunity for members of the public to voice opinions on the matters being considered. So we'll pause periodically for public comment, probably every 20 minutes or so. During these times, if you wish to address council or the administration or ask a question, if you're here in the room, raise your hand, and after being recognized, you can go over to the podium. You need to state your name and where you live in Greenbelt, more or less. We need that for the minutes. If you are on Zoom, you can use the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen to submit a written question, or you can raise your virtual hand, and once again, we'll promote you. You'll need to share your name and where you live in Greenbelt, more or less, or just where you live in general. And if you're watching on cable TV, if you are watching on YouTube, or what else is there? Facebook live streaming, you can send us a question or comment by email. The email address is questions@greenbeltmd.gov. So in general, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes and speak on one topic related to the question under consideration. And we ask that you avoid questioning the motives of others, and in general, let's all be civil in our remarks. We'll try our best. So tonight is a special night. We're actually sitting down and talking with the representatives of the Beltway Plaza Mall, representatives from the Quantum Corporation. So I forgot to actually introduce our city manager, Josue Samaran. Josue, how are you?
Good evening, Mr. Ware. I'm doing great. Okay. It's been a really good day.
Yeah, it has been a good day. So, certainly Beltway Plaza Mall is one of the many economic drivers of the city of Greenbelt, and has been an integral part of our business community for many, many years. So we appreciate the opportunity to sit down and talk from time to time. It's been a little while, and there have been some changes. We're just really so sad to hear Capstan had passed away about 6 months ago. And we're still getting over that. He was such an important part of our business community and just the community in general. And the Beltway Plaza Quantum has been sponsored many activities, lots of community engagement. So it's really a big change. So if you could introduce yourselves, we've got some questions. We sent some questions ahead of time, and it's a whole bunch of questions. So we're going to just be thinking of those as we sort of proceed along. So, Mr. Wine, do you want to introduce yourself and your colleagues?
Yes, my name is Kenny Wine. I'm relatively new to Quantum, about 6 months, so still kind of getting into the groove of things. So really here to learn and, going to default to both Alex Forbes and David Sullivan. But I'm the Vice President of Operations. Moved from Colorado, was running a business out there, and just here to kind of help out. And I view my job as ensuring tenant success. So really try to do whatever I can to ensure that the tenants that are at our shopping centers are successful in whatever they need.
Hey, so before perhaps you can kind of just give us a quick update on the status of things at Beltway Plaza and Quantum in Greenbelt and Berwyn Heights. But before we do one of you want to talk about the history, how we got here? Originally, it was Stein's department store, maybe 40, 50 years ago, something like that. Anybody?
Heard of the elder member of
Well, yeah, Beltway Plaza has been a part of the community for a long, long time. Originally, there was an A&P grocery store and a strip center down where Five Below is now. and the S. Klein department store, which was built in 1962, I believe. They were there for a number of years, and the mall was built in the 70s. 72 was the main section of the mall, was connected to the S. Klein department store, and didn't quite connect to the strip center at that time. And then in, 1992, we were able to get Giant to move across the street because they needed a bigger location and a new store. So we relocated them across the street, and that's when we connected the mall in 92 and 93 to the other portion that was built in the 70s. And in 2000, we put Caldor in, built the parking deck in the front, and so it's been through a lot of changes, and we've always tried to work real hard on the property to keep up with the times, and that's part of what we're doing with the residential redevelopment, is sort of take the next steps to keep the place thriving.
Yeah, that's interesting. I remember the Caldors. I moved here in about 2000, and I remember at the corner of Cherrywood and Greenbelt Road, there was actually a car wash across the street from there. I remember a steakhouse. So things have evolved over time. Was there a hot shop there at one time? No.
Bob's Big Boy.
Bob's Big Boy. Okay.
Was it Hot Shops first? Yeah.
Back in the 60s.
Sorry.
Okay. And just for another reference point, Quantum Companies owns Beltway Plaza, and they also own all the property basically from the middle school over to over to Greenbelt Station, more or less. So all of the commercial property in between.
Well, it's owned under various partnerships, but Quantum does manage all those properties, and it's the properties from where La Curva is now to the Target building, with the exception of the little office building directly behind Chipotle. We don't own that property, or the Shell station.
And across the street, you've got some holdings as well. The Aldi, where Staples used to be, and
We do. Staples closed about a year and a half ago, and we moved Aldi in there. We also own the Olympic Auto Parts building in Iron Pig, and the dentist behind that.
very good, very good. So that's really a substantial, huge presence in the city of Greenbelt and Berwyn Heights, and just really appreciative of all the work you do. So circling back, so what is the current status of things at Beltway Plaza? Are there any, how are the existing businesses doing? Are there any new tenants coming in, or any changes in the near future, aside from the redevelopment plan itself?
Well, Beltway Plaza has always been the project that takes most of our time, and we work really hard at it. But and it's a constant. It's constant, constantly changing. Needs a lot of work to keep it leased. But we've worked real hard to try to develop a relationship with the city of Greenbelt and Berwyn Heights, and the community at large, to try to keep interest in the property. And it's done remarkably well for a mall in today's day and age. Continues to perform, has its issues. TJ Maxx recently left after their 10-year lease. So that was a little bit of a blow, and we're working on trying to fill that space. Generally, the mall is pretty full, with the exception of the Big Lot space and the TJ Maxx space. I think all of our tenant spaces, with the exception of Shoe Stars, who recently moved, everything else is pretty much leased at this time. So it's doing okay, but it does take a lot of work to keep it going. But we're a smaller firm, and we believe in hands-on management, and so we're going to continue to work on keeping it going.
That's great. We were excited to, many of us were there at the ribbon cutting, the relocation of the Beltway Plaza hardware store.
Yeah.
And it seemed like some of the other businesses were sort of shifting around there. So But it's really unique. There are not very many enclosed malls anymore. The town square model seems to be more in the vogue, or at least it was.
Well, we consider ourselves a community center more than a mall, really. And that's always what we've tried to focus on, is being part of the community.
Very good, very good. Let's see, now a lot of these questions council members put together, so I'm going to ask Ms. McKinney to ask the question about the future of Beltway Plaza.
My computer was restarting, so I cannot get my digital copy. So if someone could actually start for me, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're all very, very curious. We kind of sat and worked with you and worked through so many things, coming up with the plan for the redevelopment of Beltway Plaza Mall, Beltway Plaza, and that transition to opening it up. And after, I guess we worked on that for about 3 or 4 years at least, and the plan moved forward. Maryland National Capital Park and Planning, the Planning Board and County Council approved the plan. So to see the work beginning in the rear of the parking lot is very, very exciting. So can you give us just an update on where we are right now, where you are with the redevelopment project, and are any modifications to the approved project?
So we started in 2006, I guess, trying to get a conceptual site plan approved, and so it's quite a number of years and a lot of work to get to where we are today. We worked with the council a lot, and we appreciate your support on the project. We would have had a more celebratory start to what we did, but we're really just starting the garage portion of the project, the foundation, and to try to, I guess, a lot of you know that because of interest rates and various things, that financing became challenging for various projects, including this one. So in order to try to spur on the development and get maybe a residential developer a little more interested, we've gone ahead and started what we had permitted, which was the garage building, and we're building that foundation as we work through getting permits for the rest of it. But we don't have financing right now. We're working on getting that financing secured in place and really kicking off the full part of the project. So it's a little bit on hold, but we want to get started with this portion and continue to try to do some of the work, infrastructure work, and hopefully by the time interest rates come down, thankfully they came down some today, and we're hoping next year that'll allow the project to really fully proceed. As far as the overall project, it's, as you can see, we're still just building the first building. We have 3 residential buildings approved now in the back part of the project. It doesn't affect the mall building itself, other than the Laugh Out Loud and church space, which we will dedicate to the city when we go to build the next building, part of a community center. But otherwise, the mall pretty much stays intact. And that project, just to develop that, is probably 7 to 10 years, easy. So my guess is, the next steps require another detailed site plan. We would then come back and, of course, discuss all that process with you when the mall starts to be affected and the rest of the units are going to be built sometime in the future. But right now, that's quite a ways off. However, if we get this first building going next year, it's probably a 2-year process to build it and get it leased up, see how things go, and then hopefully there'll be more interest in the rest of it and we can just keep it going. But it is a process, and there has to make financial sense for these developers to want to go forward. Right now, we're building it out of our own funds, what we're doing now. And again, we're just trying to spur on that part and get it started.
Yeah, it was kind of like the perfect storm. All of the hard work from 2006, the conceptual site plan, the detailed aspects of the plan that moved forward, and then came COVID, and then came the interest rates. So, it's been a challenging time for retail in general, although restaurants seem to have done pretty well. The retail part is still it seems like new approaches or just a new way of looking at things seems to be happening.
Yeah, COVID and the internet have both affected the retail sales significantly. But retail's coming back some now, and we're hopeful that it's going to continue to recover.
Hey, so it's a long-term plan, but just thinking about the residential and looking at the mix between retail, residential, and public space. What are you thinking that mix is going to look like ultimately?
Well, our conceptual site plan, I think, reduces our, having to think here a minute, I think reduces our retail space to around 700,000 if I had to put a number on it, down from 9 something now. So we get rid of the mall. This is long-term, and this has to go through detailed site plan. So all that's long-term, way far off. So I don't know how much you want to get into discussing that versus what we have approved and the mix in there. So what we have approved is the 3 buildings and a hotel, so 4 buildings. And there's no retail in that space. There is the public area in the front, which we try to create a nice public area along Breezewood. So that'll be a common area, open to the public. We've agreed to dedicate the Laugh Out Loud former Sports Authority building to the city. We will reduce it in size a little bit just to make the project work. But that would happen over the next couple of years, maybe. If this first project takes off and is successful, we would then want to go to the second one, at which time we would do that work for the city. But as far as affecting our existing tenants, any of that, I mean, that's 10 years away, and who knows what happens between now and then. Maybe in 5-6 years, we start looking at a detailed site plan and can discuss it, but really don't know what the conditions are going to be and what the market's going to be at that point. So it'd be hard to say what we would do there.
Whole lot can happen. Hey, so and I got you, Mr. Roberts. So just thinking about the very first part, the first building, they're grading the land there in the rear. That's going to be the parking lot. So you said maybe 2-3 years on the first of the 3 residential buildings. When would we expect to really start to see motion, just in terms of construction and things coming, trucks coming in, and surveyors with their little things?
Right. Maybe you haven't been there for a little bit, but they are actually doing that now with respect to the garage building. So we graded that area. We started around, I guess, right after 4th of July on the grading. The concrete company started 1st of September-ish, working on the foundation now for the garage. So that work's underway, and we're hoping, as we said, to keep that work going. Start working on the ring road relocation in a way that we can keep the existing ring road the way it's modified now and build the new one next to it. So that's sort of what we're thinking we're going to do maybe this spring. And sort of keep the ball rolling. And then, as I say, hopefully we can get financing and get our residential developer back on board.
Yeah, I kind of wish we had some diagrams. Yeah, as you may have noticed, we have many new council members, and so the ring road really is a pretty important part of the project, just as far as delineating the footprint and separating the residential from the current retail part. So that may start next year.
Yes, we're hopeful to start that in the spring, and the intent is to keep the ring road open, hopefully continuously. There might be some interruptions here and there, but our goal is to try to keep that open as we do the work.
Right. And and you mentioned, so the entrance way would actually Breezewood, off of Breezewood, and it would sort of loop around back behind where the old Sports Authority store was, around to the front to Target. And
Correct.
And coming.
Yeah, the connection to Breezewood would probably happen when we do the second building. But we're trying to maintain, as we build the first building, which impacted the former ring road where it was before. It's impacted it somewhat, so we've had to relocate a little bit. And then the new ring road relocation will be on the other side of where the temporary road is now. And then the residential building, once that's open, we'll be able to build the residential building. temporary ring road is now. So, yeah, but eventually it does connect to Breezewood and it'll continue out to Cherrywood
And the hotel, which is way down the road, would be there at Cherrywood, at the corner of Cherrywood and next or adjacent to the Shell station.
basically behind the Shell station, yes.
Interesting. Okay. Hey, Mr. Roberts has had his hand up. He's got some strong opinions about the whole proposal.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Rodney.
Strong opinion?
I'm sure you know how I feel about your, apartment deal there. It's insanity, in my opinion. But anyway, I have, a question a little more, related to now, or maybe in the near future, hopefully. Well, I'm wondering, do you have any plans for the near future to actually improve the mall itself? The interior and the exterior, a lot of it is, I hate to say it's a little tired. And so that's what I'm worried about right now. Yeah, the apartments are, I see that freight train coming down the road, but this is one that's facing us every day when I go there, what I see. So I'm just wondering about that. So thank you. Hopefully you have financing for that somewhere.
Depends on the extent, but we have been looking at a little bit of a refresh inside with some paint and probably some new, we had planters that were a bit old and some refresh on that sort of thing. So we do want to do some work on the interior of the mall to try to bring it, make it new and fresh. So I can't give you a timeline, but Kenny, that's one of the things that Kenny came on and he recognized that as well. And so he's working on putting together some ideas and we're going to come up with a scope. May not be as much as you'd like, but we do plan on doing some work and we continue to try to repave areas and paint areas on the outside and keep our, building as nice as we can. I think we do a pretty good job. I'm like to hear some feedback on things maybe outside of this, but we will be working on doing some work on the inside of the mall.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, just how things are right now. I want to actually thank you, for the space that you have dedicated to the community, specifically the space, Shamar Higgs Art and Community Engagement Project, which is upstairs on the second level, but also down on the first level. And I was at a program this afternoon with Employ Prince George's, and they were talking about the new workforce center there, where people will be able to come and get assistance in finding jobs and whatnot. So those are two. You've got a real legacy of doing things in the community and working with the city very closely. So we appreciate the fact that is continuing on.
Yeah, Cap was a big influence in that, and Alex is going to work on that as well. So hopefully, as a team here, we'll try to continue that relationship.
But I was able to find the diagrams, at least the previous ones, are up on the city website. So there it goes. So this might be a little bit helpful to sort of explain. So is it parking deck 1 that you're working on now?
Yes,
on the
that's
right?
correct.
So that's the part that's underway, and so building 1A would be the first one built. You can kind of see where the parking deck 4, that's the existing, is that the existing parking structure? And then the recreation center is the internal area that, there, because I think that might help people visualize it a little bit.
Correct.
Yes, Councilmember McKinney.
Thank you. So a couple of questions. So you mentioned, and I appreciate Mr. Roberts' question around what are some things that you can do today to try to update the building? Because I would guess that as you're looking at additional partnerships and partners that want to come in and bring in more retail, they're looking at the overall space and the attractiveness of it. So if you can I'm not a developer, but if you could put some money into it, that might also sort of attract some additional people coming in. And I guess I'm just trying to understand when you're saying you're thinking about the financing and trying to figure out what the new plan will be, I think a lot of our residents are seeing development in our surrounding communities. And so I'm wondering, is there competition or what's happening? So if you go over on Route 1, there's a lot of development over there, retail, residential, all of that. So do you find as though that is competition to what was in the original plan? Or are you trying to go after a new financing strategy, trying to understand where your strategy is going now?
With respect to the rear residential,
Just in general, because it sounded like part of the delay in attracting additional retail as well as the residential was attracting financing. Did I hear that incorrectly?
the financing that we're having trouble with is for the first residential building. It's
Okay.
not related to the mall in any way, other than being on the mall property.
Okay,
But we're not having financing challenges with the mall or bringing in tenants.
okay,
So there's no issue there, but in order to build that first residential building, we need to have financing. It's a rather large project, I think it's $100 million plus to build that one building. So it needs a bank to finance a portion of that. But the mall itself, we continue to work on trying to find tenants. The back of the mall, we haven't spent a lot of time on, but I think we will once this first building is built. There'll be more people back there, and I think it needs to be addressed a little bit. But the front of the mall, we built the mall facade that's like from Kumon down to Super Beauty not that long ago. And there's some consideration to maybe do that on the other portion, but it's not very visible, so we're not sure that it would be that beneficial.
So just, I'm sorry, a follow-up question. So you're saying you're trying to find tenants. What are some of the, what's the feedback that you're getting or the challenges that you're facing in finding those tenants? So even in the front part of the mall, there have been a couple of, I think there's Boston Market that was there that is gone. TJ Maxx is now gone. What are some of the things that you're hearing that might be some of the challenges to getting additional tenants into those locations?
Well, the former Boston Market space will be leased if it's, that has not been a problem. We've had a lot of interest in that, and we should be able to let people know what's going on with that fairly soon. I don't know that we have something that we can release tonight, but it will be leased quickly. So that's not a problem. The problem is the bigger spaces inside the mall, and that's true nationwide. You have a lot of department stores that are leaving. It's just hard to fill the bigger spaces. It's not necessarily anything related to Beltway Plaza. It's just a difficult thing to do right now in the retail market. So we have Big Lots, which is about 40,000 feet, and we have TJ Maxx, which is about 25,000 feet. Other than that, we have, I think, two small spaces. You reminded me that the hardware store relocated because we're maybe going to combine that with a TJ Maxx. So we did that for a reason, and they're very happy where they are now by Giant.
Visibility for them.
Yeah, and so I don't think there's a challenge with Beltway Plaza. I think that it's not viewed negatively by retailers. It's just that the national market right now makes it challenging to rent the larger spaces.
Hey, I was wondering, the hours during COVID, so many stores cut their hours back quite a bit, and Beltway Plaza also used to be open a little bit later. Now, of course, the Giant grocery store was open 24 hours a day, and I believe the Planet Fitness gym that's there is, in fact, open 24 hours a day. But I think the rest of the mall, the inside part, closes at 9 o'clock now, and a little bit earlier on Sundays, 9 o'clock. Any thoughts about maybe manipulating, changing the hours around as a way of just bringing more people in? Because, the restaurants outside, most, they're open a little bit later, and it seems like they're very busy. So how do you bring people inside of the mall? The movie theaters there?
Yeah, it's difficult. I think most malls are closing around 9 these days. If we had the business, if there were customers coming in, we would certainly stay open longer. We have, as you noted, added time over the last few years, I guess, since COVID. And now I think we're exactly the same or similar to Prince George's Plaza and other places. So I think that it's just a market situation that the tenants don't want to be open and pay their payroll and pay all their expenses and overhead if there's nobody in the mall.
Mayor Pro Tem, you had a question?
Yeah, it was just something when we were talking about some of the improvements and things that were coming, just a minor one to suggest. There aren't any bike racks on the front of the mall, or at least not over by like the Silver Diner and other places. There are a couple on the back. I know there's one by the movie theater, and I think one over on the back side of the Giant. But my husband and I sometimes ride our scooters over from Greenbelt Station, and there's nowhere to lock our scooters like going to Silver Diner. So just minor suggestion, just wanted to throw that out there before I forgot.
Noted. It's a good suggestion. We do have some bike racks. They are a little old. Not that being old is a reason to get rid of something, but it's a good point. So we'll look into adding some.
Yeah, it has been a while, and maybe it's time for a refresh on the bike racks. I guess there's one over by Target as well, just making them a little bit more flexible. Are you thinking about charging stations or anything in the near future, short term, soon?
Yes, we would like to do that. It's a little bit of a strange market, and we're having a little trouble nailing down. Josue, sorry, mentioned maybe doing some stuff with City of Greenbelt and Pepco. So we may try to see if there's something that we can get going with that. We would like to add some. We are going to add some as part of the residential development. And I think we committed to adding some in the front deck as part of that redevelopment too. So we do plan to add some at some point.
Yeah, very good. Of course, our new economic development director, John Mason, is here. I don't know if you haven't had a chance to meet. He just started this week, but he'll be working with you. Councilmember Pompey.
Hi. So 2 questions. One's kind of like / observations. One is that it's similar to the Mayor Pro Tem's question or suggestion, is that what strikes me when I go there is that the mall, the exterior of the mall is very much designed for cars and not for people or pedestrians or people on bicycles. And it feels like you're sort of running a gauntlet when you're in there as a pedestrian. And I don't know if you guys have thought about any improvements that you could make to just make it more accessible to pedestrians, because I do think you get a lot of pedestrians over there, people who walk there from the surrounding apartment complexes. So that's one thing that always strikes me. And then the other thing is that, one of the things I really love about Beltway Plaza Mall is that, like 20 years ago, maybe that mall would have been filled with chain stores, right? Like that's what, maybe even less than 20 years ago, but I'm thinking when I was going to malls. So, but now this mall that we have here is really filled with small businesses. And I think that's great for the community. I think that's great for economic development in the community. And I was just wondering, was that intentional on your part? Like, did you sort of pivot at some point and say, we're really going to sort of market ourselves towards these small businesses, or did that just kind of happen organically?
A lot of it's market driven. We are a smaller community center. A lot of the chain mall tenants want something like, Tyson's Corner, where it's big, lots of people go. This is more a small, it's been mom and pops, what we would consider that are local tenants, local people. The term in the industry is mom and pops, but we view them as community members that want to have a business. So we've focused on that for quite some time, because the community seems to appreciate it and they seem to like to be there. So it's just a good fit, and we enjoy it. Yeah.
Hey, thanks for that question, Jenny. The idea of people walking, there's been talk about walk sheds, how many people can get to a destination in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And in fact, there's a couple of articles about the 15-minute suburb where everything is within 15 minutes of most other things. And you've got so many not so new residents in Greenbelt Station who could easily walk over, not to mention all the folks in Berwyn Heights. So we continue to try and work with State Highway and with you and College Park to try and think of, visualize, and work towards a better connection, Greenbelt Road, so that it's not just a place where people drive through, but instead makes the intersection of College Park, Berwyn Heights, and Greenbelt a destination. And, Beltway Plaza is such an important part of that vision. So we.
Yeah, and I didn't comment on your question about connectivity. I apologize for that. But we do have long-term plans, and part of the residential redevelopment is to add sidewalk all along Greenbelt Road, which we've agreed to do, and modify the main intersection by Boston, what was Boston Market, somewhat. So it's a little more pedestrian friendly. And that connection will continue to the mall. We plan to add sidewalk along there on a temporary basis, and then long-term would develop into a more, there's, long-term, that road is eventually designed to carry through the mall space and be more walkable. And then in the back, our side of Breezewood will get sidewalk all along the full length. Actually, it gets a 10-foot trail for part of it, maybe the whole length. It's been a while. I don't recall. Yeah, whole length. And the connection from Breezewood into the center will give that a lot more walkable feel and residential feel. So that's, long-term plan is to have the better connectivity.
I think that's great, because I think some of that's on, the Greenbelt Road really does hinder that too, because Greenbelt Road is very much designed to get cars places and not designed to get a pedestrian or a cyclist places. It's designed for the convenience of cars, speed, and not for like safe movement of people. So that's part of it too. But.
No doubt, no doubt. Ms. Pope?
So I just wondered, I know that I think CAP always had like monthly merchant meetings, and if you still continue to do those. And I'm also, my second question is, how do you communicate with your merchants? Because, the redevelopment, there's a lot of changes coming, as you just said yourself, and at some point for the mall itself as well. And there are changes for your tenants. So how do you communicate, and do you communicate with your merchants? And because I know they're curious, because they've been following this long process as well. You have merchants in there that have been there for forever, right? Since I've been there 24 years, so I know a lot of them, a lot of people there. So how do they feel about it, and how do you communicate with them? So keep them updated.
So with respect to merchants meetings, we did start those back up. They have been a little sporadic. Kenny was at one, and I think he's going to be part of those more now, and I think we're going to start having those more regularly again. Kenny or Alex or myself, probably one of us are at the mall every day during the week, or at least 3-4 times a week, and we interact with the tenants on a daily basis. So we've gotten a lot of questions about what's going on, and of course, when we were doing the detailed site plan approval process, a lot of them were here and supported it. We worked very closely with them to make sure they understood what we were doing, and explained to them that we really wanted to keep them, as we believe they are a big part of the community and want to keep them. So we try to communicate directly with our tenants, one-on-one with the shop owners. Janaby, who does our marketing, also contacts a lot of stuff with emails, but that's more formality stuff. But we try to just be involved, and we know all our tenants, and they all have my cell number. They can call me anytime. So.
Right. I just think it's important, because you did say you see yourself as a community center, right? Because it's your community, right?
Absolutely.
And it is a small community. That's really true. I go to Beltway Plaza regularly, and it is a community, and I think that's why it's important to keep that communication up, to keep that feeling up, because CAP, you have big shoes to fill. I'm just, I know you know that, but I'm going to say it, because he's a big part of Beltway Plaza, right? That was near and dear to his heart. And so I'm sure people are maybe a little concerned or worried. And, so I really do hope that you keep up with all of that, because I think that is so important. And we do need our small businesses to stay here in Greenbelt. That's our focus. And that's why we're trying to work with you and work with others as well to make that happen. But I do have a quick other question. to your building? Because now I heard you're looking for funding, which makes me nervous when I hear that, because that tells me that nothing's in the bag, right? So things could happen. So then we're going to have a garage back there again, because the garage is always a big a big sore point. So we're going to have a garage, and we may have a building. That's what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
Well, just going to cap a moment, and I appreciate you mentioning his big shoes, because I think it's going to take the three of us to fill them. And we're going to try real hard, and hopefully we can do him, do the honor of trying to continue what he did. I know he's a big part of the community, and we want to continue that.
Yes.
With respect to the building, we don't have funding for the building, so I'm just being honest and open, but we're not going to build the garage itself until the full building's funded. So you're not going to have an ugly garage to look at. We do have a foundation that sets pretty low, and we're going to try to deal with it, but our hope is that it doesn't sit there and we continue the project. But we're not going to build the garage itself, 5-story ugly building that's designed to have a residential building around it, so it's hidden before that building is going to be built.
Okay, well, that's good. That makes me, that calms me down somewhat. But the other question is, so when we were talking about building some years ago, and we always, in Greenbelt, we always need more senior housing, right? And so our hope is that in that building, in the future buildings that you have in mind building, that are you still interested in making some of the units, or a few units, senior accessible at least, so that we would have the possibility of having some of our seniors who may be looking to move into a one-floor space have the ability to maybe look into your wonderful property once it's all up and running?
Sure.
You're talking about like a mixed income community where,
Well, I'm really thinking about, I mean, mixed income be nice too, but my question was more towards seniors. That just came to my mind right now, because I'm the liaison to the senior committee, so that, and I'm always getting asked when we're gonna get senior apartments, so that's why that's why my
We
focus
agreed
went.
to do a study on the senior housing issue, and we'll fulfill our commitment. I don't remember exactly what it was off the top of my head. This first building that we're focused on right now has elevators, so while it's not a first floor, it's not like Franklin Park that has stairs and is a little challenging. There's a requirement for ADA accessible units, which obviously we will have, and they can double as senior units. But this first building does not specifically have a senior component, because it's an interesting market. Typically, the seniors would like to go to a community that's built for them, like a full community that has all the amenities, that they're connected to each other. And it's not really this product that they're looking for. But we are trying to integrate it in a way that makes it convenient to get to the grocery stores and makes it walkable and accommodating, but not necessarily specific for seniors.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Speaking of CAP, this Saturday, the Rotary Club and the city is plan to actually plant a tree in memory, in recognition of CAP's contributions to the city. I think that's going to happen around noon over in Buddy Attic Park. So
Is that?
this Saturday at
Oh,
noon. Yeah.
we weren't aware of that.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's very sweet, very nice of you. The family has been very private about this. They're sort of kept to themselves, and obviously we respect that. We plan to do something probably next year, in a year, after passing or so, to do something probably at the mall. But we haven't exactly figured out exactly what we're going to do.
It's still a shock.
Yeah.
Hey, go ahead.
Well, just related to that, I've mentioned this to Kenny, but I know that the Greenbelt Rotary Club is also very interested in being involved in that and would love to support that. So just when that comes down the pike, I'm pretty sure that Jennifer Dudley, who's the president of the Rotary Club, has interacted with Janabi and others, but just so that you are aware of that as well, that they would really enjoy being part of that.
Great, thank you.
So, yeah, we were talking about EV charging stations, and that got me thinking a little bit about the environment and about sustainability, and just in terms of right now, just ways to kind of cut cost and help the environment at the same time. So I'm wondering, are you thinking about any environmental initiatives that could help with Pepco or WSSC, or just talking about the garages, the garage in the front of Beltway Plaza on Greenbelt Road. A former council member, Mac, just had she would always speak up about the garage and trying to do something with it so that it was more functional or more just drew people in a little bit more. But the top deck is just there and it's kind of empty. So have you thought a little bit in the not so distant future about solar panels or things like that would save you money but would also cut down on your footprint, your carbon footprint?
Yeah, we've actually thought a lot about it, and we've had some companies show some interest. The problem is they want a 30-year commitment. And that's hard for us to do, especially with the residential redevelopment that we're contemplating. Ultimately, we'd like to replace the front deck with residential buildings and walkable streets, and it's was built because of Caldor needing parking spaces at their grade and to meet the county requirement for a number of spaces. So which used to be higher than it is now. That's why we're able to build some stuff in the back, because we have excess parking. The front deck is important to a tenant that's upstairs, so it's still important. But long-term, we want to redevelop. And if we put solar panels on that, we're sort of locked into that for 30 years, and that's not really something we want to do. But we have explored it, and we've considered putting maybe some panels on the Shoppers World, that building roof, and we're still considering that. But I don't have an answer to tell you we would be doing it, next year.
Yeah, maybe when that building is dedicated to the part that would be dedicated to the city of Greenbelt, maybe we can partner with you on that. Or, I mean, there's some funding or grant opportunities that come up from time to time, and we're all about sustainability and you guys watching the bottom line. So I think we need to try and focus on that somehow.
Yeah, and that building has a pitched roof, and some of them face south, so it actually would probably be a good candidate for solar panels.
Yeah, so I understand that a lot of the plans that may have been the original plans may shift, market changes, and the market continues to change. Do you anticipate that the original detailed plan that we have shared out and was approved will remain the same, or will there be changes to that? And then the second part of that question is, what is your kind of strategic timeline? Like, what is coming next? What would our community start to see beyond the parking deck? What will they know will come? Will you need to do another kind of visioning and mapping out session, and so what's the timeline around that, so we can be able to communicate that to people? Because it just seems like there's been a lot of, even prior to COVID, there was just a lot of time. So I'm just trying to understand, what's the timeline?
So are we. Sorry, but it's just a little unknown right now, and I didn't mean to be disrespectful in that answer. I was kidding to some degree, but without our financing in place, I can't tell you, and without knowing what the market's going to be, I can't tell you exactly what the timeline is. But generally, we think we would like to redevelop the back first, which is really the opportunity that we have to redevelop first financially, because to tear the mall down and start doing something in the front just doesn't make financial sense to anybody, because it would, you'd lose taxes, the funding would be crazy, and it just doesn't make sense. So our strategic planning is to build in the back first. And that detailed site plan was approved with the 3 buildings in the hotel that we saw on the screen. And that's still our plan. And we have to build what's on that plan. Or we have to come and ask you in Prince George's County to allow us to amend it. So we're planning to build what's there, and we don't plan to make changes to it. And as long as a residential developer will come on and build it, and the market doesn't change to say, this is what it has to be or it's not going to happen, then we're going to build what's on that plan. If we don't, we will come and talk and figure out a plan that works for everybody, including the city of Greenbelt.
And then in the interim, that plan includes basically the plaza, the main building staying as is for now with minimal updates, or?
While we're building the back,
Okay.
that's the plan. Refresh, try to make sure we're keeping up with with the market, make sure we're able to lease space, do what's required for that. But generally, our efforts are going to be spent on the back until we get that up and running. And that's 750 apartment units. So we're hoping that will bring people that will shop at the center, help tenants do better, bring in new tenants or better tenants if you want to. I think the tenants we have are actually pretty good. So, but they'll perform better. They'll want to be there. They'll extend their leases, and that'll allow us to continue the process.
Okay.
But the back part's probably 10 years.
So 10 years of the mall remaining the same with minimal updates, that's a long time. And I'm just wondering if supporting our local businesses in there, as well as looking at ways to bring additional retail, will also then attract tenants to that back building. So waiting to do a larger repair and update or some planning around the existing building, I'm wondering if there is part of your strategy could actually be focused on that as well. That might help the back part.
Well, I guess it depends on what the vision is for the mall. We think that, and there's been some articles written not that long ago that were very favorable, and even though it was built in the 70s, we've tried to keep it up to date, and it, with the tenants that are there, I think it has a pretty good mix, and people seem to enjoy it. So we plan to maintain it. We plan to refresh it, around the edges, so to speak, but we don't plan on doing anything major unless, market conditions require it.
I appreciate your candor. Of course, the city has aspirations, and we've kind of gone back and forth. I've always been concerned about the phasing, and I may actually call on our planning and community development director just to give a quick overview of the city's perception of the phasing and where we are on the project in a few minutes, not right now. But yeah, I'm becoming a little bit more optimistic. I think interest rates are dropping, and I think the economic environment is improving. And there are so many things going on around us in College Park and Riverdale Park and really all around us. And we do have a federal agency coming in there at the metro station, the FBI.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Have you heard any? Is there anything you can share, or?
Waiting for the election to happen, but as far as things are looking pretty good as far as funding. That's Mr. Summerone, you've been huddling with the county and talking some things through, talking about. So just in terms of the funding that's been dedicated by Congress and how that's moving along, the money's there, pretty much, right?
The construction funding has not been approved. It was approved in an early version earlier this year, an appropriations bill, but it was removed by the House, and that construction money was $3.5 billion. We hope to see it in another appropriation bill that we expect to hear more about it in the October-November timeframe. So I remain optimistic that we will have construction funding get appropriated through Congress ending the year. But we still have an election to see what the results are and if the incoming president will have a change of heart. But the state, we are having a monthly meeting, and the team, the state, county, and various entities that are involved, we continue our planning efforts as if the project's moving forward, because there has been money designated for this project. Congress has approved design funds, and the state and county has allocated funding for the project.
And I believe, because of our the seniority of our federal delegation and their focus and passion for this project, bringing this project to Maryland, I think it's going to happen. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, this is more of a follow-up from what Danielle was asking about, because right before this meeting, I was in a Park and Recreation Advisory Board meeting, and I asked them what they which I know the previous plans were presented to them, and I asked them, well, what do you want me to ask Beltway Plaza? And they would appreciate that you brought up and reiterated the indoor recreation space that's part of that plan. That's something that we're very excited about. And I think the next question is probably not one that's answerable right now, but one of the things they did want me to make sure and emphasize is I believe those original plans for phase 2, opening up the mall, included like some green space and not ball fields, but at least some gathering space that would be outdoor space. And that's something that they wanted. And I know that would be part of the next phase that may not happen for 7 to 10 years, but Prab just asked me to make sure to emphasize they'd love to see some of that. I think it does seem like there are people gathering in the mall, but it would also be really nice to have an outdoor place, something like Roosevelt Center here, where we just had the Blues Festival last weekend and had lots of people gathering outside and enjoying the outdoor space. And that's something that I remember noticing when I first saw those plans, was very excited about. I mean, it'll be a while, but to have that space available. And that's also, I think, related to one of the questions we had on here from Teresa Joseph about, and it said, would the city consider retail storefronts with walkways as opposed to keeping the enclosed mall? It's not really the city considering it. It's Beltway Plaza. And I believe, and that was part of that plan as formulated, 5 or 6 years ago.
Sure. And the phase that we're doing now does have the AMC, what we hope will be a gathering area, where the connection from Breezewood comes straight down towards AMC. There's a small park that's going to be there. There's also park space along Breezewood that's along the residential. So there will be some gathering space as part of this phase. And that's mainly will happen as the second building gets built, that AMC area and the connection to Breezewood, which hopefully won't be that long. Hopefully we'll start that in about 2 years or so. As far as the mall itself and how we're going to redevelop that, we'll go through the detailed site plan process, and you guys will be very much involved in that. And we do plan on having open spaces and making it walkable and making it nice so that all this redevelopment makes sense for everybody. So it has to be a real nice place where people want to come and enjoy themselves, and that will certainly be part of our plan.
Yeah, hopefully with that, the circulator road and the second building that you just mentioned, that will provide an opportunity, because that is supposed to be sort of like a pedestrian mall almost, to some extent, an outdoor pedestrian area mall where people can gather. So hopefully that in the next 2 years, I think you said, maybe that's something that would be happening to some extent.
We hope to complete this building that we're working on, just starting on. It'll probably take 2 years to build. And if leasing goes fine and there's interest in the second building, we would then start that second building immediately, which would include that AMC Plaza area. And the area between the two buildings is there's a nice plaza space between the two buildings that will be created, and that connection to Breezewood would also be created at that point.
I'm going to put Terry Ruby on the spot here in a second. Do you want?
Well,
I know there's a couple of questions there.
Yeah, they sort of fit in with the things we were talking about before. This is just mostly a comment from Susan Walker, who's the president of the Greenbelt Community Development Corporation, and they would also like to memorialize CAP. They were thinking of recognizing CAP at the nonprofit conference in November, and they wanted to know who and how could they contact Quantum to coordinate that with you all.
That would be handled by Alex Forbes, and we'll
Okay.
make sure you have his information.
Okay, great. So we can connect him to Susan.
Okay. Our Director of Planning and Community Development has worked so hard and so many years working with Quantum, working with State Highway and other stakeholders to kind of move this project forward. And I don't mean to really put you on the spot, but can you just talk briefly, just for the new council members and just for everyone, just give us a real quick overview of our perception of the phasing and what's about to happen and what is happening at Beltway Plaza.
Sure. I think I don't really have much more to add. I think we reviewed the phasing. It's a multi-phase project. Currently, they're approved for what we are calling phase one, but it's 1A, B, and C. And with each phase, the city has agreement with certain conditions that are associated with each phase. So like the completion of building 1A, with that, we will get the 10-foot hiker biker trail along Breezewood Drive. You mentioned the type of housing. We do have a condition, I believe it's associated with building one's the last building, or from 3 years when they apply for first building permit, that they would fund a market study to look at the housing market, and that if we would actually conduct that, they would fund it. If the market study found that there was opportunities for, say, more diverse housing, whether it be cooperative, senior, then there was an agreement that they would market to that type of housing. Not that it was required, but they would market and see whether it was a viable. So we have that type of condition in there. As you may recall, some council members, there was a lot of concern regarding the hotel and competition. And again, it was a lot during COVID and so forth, and concerns about market competition with our existing one. So we do have a condition in there associated with the hotel that they need to do a market study to show that it is viable. And really regarding the development in the front, we don't have a phasing plan yet. That will come with the detailed site plan, but there are some things tied to the front, as Mr. Sullivan said, certain 193 improvements that are tied to the rear development. I think we also have a commitment that we would work together to see as the rear evolved in looking at whether we had opportunities to maybe soften the garage in the front. Council did a excellent job, I would say, in negotiating outside of the Prince George's County planning process to try to protect some of our concerns, if you want, and our wants for the development. So with each plan, we have a conceptual site plan, we have a preliminary plan, and we have a detailed site plan now, and we expect future detailed site plans. With each one of those, we will discuss and recreation. We have some conditions regarding recreation, not only for the center, but in future phases as well. So all those things will be addressed as those phases progress, if you will.
Ms. Ruby, thank you for all of your work to date on this project. It's amazing the kind of insights and just being able to really negotiate and working with the advisory planning board to work with builders and developers and property owners in the city of Greenbelt, particularly in this case with Beltway Plaza. Hey, one thing that occurs to me is, we had the zoning ordinance in Prince George's County has been rewritten, and there was a mention of the parking requirements being changed around. Are there any other changes that would affect our preliminary plan of
I assume, because of their approvals, I assume they will continue the development under the previous zoning ordinance. They can do that because they have the preliminary plan and the conceptual site plan that were all approved under that as well.
Very good. Council, any questions for Ms. Ruby?
Yeah, are there specific triggers built in for, like, we're talking about phase 1A, phase 1B, 1C, like that they're like a certain occupancy level on the apartment units, or
Well,
you know what I mean?
there are criteria in terms of occupancy. For example, prior to the last use and occupancy for building 1A, the first building, the trail needs the trail needs to be completed. I think it's final to the 600th building permit or 500 building permit, we had now trigger certain things with the dedication of the recreation space. So we typically tie it to either building permits or use and occupancy permits.
Okay, I probably have more interest in that than most people, so I'll just stop.
Hey, thank you, Terry.
You're welcome.
And did you have any questions that you wanted to pose?
Oh, no, we have a close working relationship. We work daily. I will say they've been excellent working with us on, and hopefully you've noticed this, a reduction in illegal signs, sometimes associated with their merchants. We've established a good working relationship with them. Sometimes they can have more influence than we do, I think, when it comes to that at times. So, but David, we talk routinely.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you. And along those,
Ms. Ruby as well. She's been excellent to work with. She did a great job on the DSP, holding the line with the city, but also allowing us the room that we needed to make it happen. So I appreciate your efforts too.
okay, let's see. I see one question, one open question, and we'll pause for some questions or comments from the public. But there's one from Coach Tammy, and I think it has to do with just the kinds of businesses or endeavors that could be attracted. And she says, I'm curious if a bulk shopping store would be interested in opening in Beltway Plaza. I would love to stay on Greenbelt Road instead of going to Route 1 or to Costco. So I guess they're sort of talking about big retail, Costco, Sam's Clubs, things like that.
With Target and Giant, I don't think that would be something we would be allowed to do with their leases, and or would it be a good idea for the center? I think it may kill both of those, which would be detrimental.
Yeah, I shop in Beltway Plaza all the time. I've noticed in some of the stores, not Target a little bit, there's kind of a shift towards more self-checkout, and it seems like there's more space, open space between the aisles. Maybe that's just a seasonal thing, because Target is really big on shifting things from one season to the next. But is that a trend in general? Stores shifting to self-checkout, so there are not so many employees in the store. And then at the same time, there's a real concern about crime and shoplifting and whatnot. Are those connected?
Well, it's interesting. Some stores are finding that the self-checkouts are not as economically beneficial as they had hoped because of theft. So while and I'm just speaking from what I've seen from the retail industry, and I'm not involved with it at all, but my understanding is their hope was to reduce the number of employees by creating the self-checkout, but the shrink is so high that it's become problematic. So I think Target actually doesn't use their self-checkout lanes right now. I'm not exactly sure why, whether that's the case with them or not. Giant seems to do more of those, and maybe they have a better control of it, or maybe that's a different market, and so it's easier to have that. Giant did do a refresh in their store. Target did do a refresh of their store a couple years back, and so that may be a change that you notice as well.
Yeah, and in the Aldi's, I don't think they have any self-checkout at all in that particular Aldi store. CVS is another store that's had a lot of problems. But our partnership between the Greenbelt Police Department and Beltway Plaza is something that is in place and has, been effective. So that's going to continue on.
Yeah, we've enjoyed a very good relationship with your police department, and we appreciate their efforts, and our security tries to work closely with them. It's been a good partnership.
Questions, Mr. Hartman and Mr. Owens?
Michael Hartman, 2 Court Garden Way. I am very pleased to hear a lot of what you're saying concerning the merchants at Beltway Plaza, the mom and pop merchants that are there. I know that CAP was very, very protective of them and supported them in many different ways. I'm hoping that you can carry on that legacy. Also, CAP was very involved with the merchants. He was instrumental in creating the Greenbelt Business Alliance, and in fact helped get our 501c3 status. That was his work to do that. But he also was very generous with merchants and with projects around the city. He would support, Beltway Plaza would support our festivals that we have during spring, summer, and fall, fundraisers, and other support for local merchants and other and also organizations. And I'm hoping that will continue as well. He started a long time ago with a woman named Barbara Simon to try to create a real connection between Roosevelt Center and Beltway Plaza in terms of projects and in terms of being mindful of those two, of Roosevelt Center and thing. And I'm the president emeritus of the Noodle Cafe in Roosevelt Center, and so worked with him on a lot of these kinds of projects that helped merchants and also the people that he was involved with. I would say that I would hope I don't know if Mr. Forbes or Mr. Wine would be the person to talk to about continuing some of these other projects and other things that Beltway Plaza was in support of the community, and so it would be good to have that information as well. And the last thing, it has nothing to do with anything except you talk about the building, the mall buildings there would be another 10 years at least. I would ask that you install automatic door openers. There are a few in strategic places, but they really should be in all doors so that people with disabilities and other folks who would benefit from that would have the automatic door openings. So, but basically, I hope that I've never met you three people before, but it seems like you're really interested in carrying on the aspects of Beltway Plaza as far as community involvement. Other than the business side, the community side is very important, and that would be a great thing for you to do. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We intend on kind of carrying on CAP's legacy and working with Janabe and kind of continuing the support of the community. We find it very important. We're a small business. We love small businesses. We want small businesses to succeed. It's a critical part of the function of our shopping centers to ensure these small businesses are successful. And I love being a part of the community, and Janabe has expressed lots of desire to keep that going. I have as well. I'm just trying to understand and learn about what is necessary and what she would like to see, as well as meeting with the tenants and seeing what they want to hear and see. So we can definitely exchange information after the meeting so we can collaborate. And yeah, I think it's just understanding what has a positive impact on the community and aligns with the values of all of our tenants. Because, everyone's views matter, and we want to make sure that everyone's kind of feels comfortable with the things that we're doing. I hope to continue these things. Oh, I didn't.
One of the things was that he did work a lot with the Merchants Association and helped build that up, and that was a critical part of that process was the Merchants Association, and helping to support the mom and pop stores that are in there that are the heart and soul of the as you've recognized. So.
Yeah, and the merchants meetings are going to continue to happen. The summer's very busy. We had our kind of first in a long time because Cap's illness back in May, and it was a very productive meeting. We had about 20 people, merchants show up, which is a good a good sign for those types of meetings. Of what I understand, Janaby, we've been kind of trying to communicate with when the next merchant meeting can happen. You know, everyone's busy. We're trying to figure out scheduling, right? Because to have them take, right, we usually do it at noon, kind of midweek. Sometimes these small businesses are the people running their business, right? So it's not necessarily appropriate for them to attend a meeting midday while they're open. So we're trying to understand what makes the most sense for everybody so we can get a large turnout and, you know, make sure we're accounting for everyone's needs and trying to coach them on what they need help with, understanding what their needs are. Whether, you know, it's something simple like how do you prevent theft of, you know, having our security who is, you know, retired law enforcement, kind of teach them and coach them on best practices, or helping them with kind of signage ideas and things that will help them kind of build their business. And, you know, there's a lot of people that are counting on us to be successful, and we are in the midst of, you know, hiring someone to assist in the kind of marketing and growth of all of our centers. And then just about the doors, and, you know, we've done a big audit of kind of things around the property, things that add a lot of value, things that are glitzy, you know, and, you know, don't necessarily add much value, and things that add a lot of value to the center, you know, doors as an example. We've certainly identified those sort of things as necessary.
If you could occasionally keep us posted when the Merchant Association meetings are, either a representative of council or certainly Mr. Mason is probably interested in coming out and meeting some of the merchants. So keep us posted. Let's see, Mr. Orleans. Mr. Orleans?
And while Mr. Orleans is going to the microphone, Alex Campbell just has a comment. I live in Greenbelt Station and just wanted to say I am excited by the progress being made here and look forward to the future. So
Great.
Good evening, thank you. I certainly join with all others, I think, in regretting the passing of Cap Capistan. Picking up on Mr. Hartman's comment, I don't know if the future public face of Quantum is going to be responsibly shared by all three of you. Only one of you I've had occasion to speak to in the past, I think. And I didn't get the name of the gentleman sitting in the middle, but are you all three going to be Cap in the future in Greenbelt, or will there be one of you that predominates in Quantum's relationship with the city?
That's a good question. I mean, Cap obviously had his hands in a lot of things. He was very active in the community, very active at Beltway Plaza, and very active in the Quantum business. So it will take all three of us probably to fill those shoes. And I think by and large, you can count on Kenny being mostly your interface for community engagement. But I mean, we're all here tonight because Cap was the conduit between the council and the community and Quantum, and we're here to make sure that those lines of communication stay open. So any one of us is happy to communicate back and forth.
I look forward to the opportunity to whine with all three of you about what I think about Beltway Plaza, as I have done over the years with Cap. It's a question, I think, open to debate whether in the last 50 years, odd years since the construction of Beltway Plaza and before it climbs, whether there are actual improvements to those acres with the loss of all those trees. I mean, certainly tax revenue to the city, it's benefited, but on the other hand, we've lost all those trees. I think it would be an interesting discussion at some point to have whether raising trees or felling trees to build buildings, retail or commercial office, whatever. Anyway, that's not my essential question. I've lost track of the number of times tonight Mr. Sullivan used the term market or market conditions or what the market will allow. Certainly, if you're looking for financing from the outside, market conditions prevail, and you want them to enhance whatever projects you may have in mind, whether I agree with them or not. But there is a market, a need, a demand for housing. And while some may think apartments at the back end of Beltway Plaza is not the best thing in the world, and I might agree, apartments, however, on the front end of Beltway Plaza, I would argue would be a very good thing. And one of the things I believe and whine with Cap about is this insistence on your profit center, and that's those spaces, pad spaces, so-called, in the front of Beltway Plaza. I think corporately, you could do yourselves a whole lot better by, as the contracts end, eliminating those pad spaces on Greenbelt Road, along Greenbelt Road, and moving the plaza, the commercial heart of the plaza, forward to Greenbelt Road with housing mixed in, and extending Beltway Plaza towards Breezewood with housing mixed in. But it would require a change of a business mindset, which I understand you may not be prepared to do since you profit so much from those pad sites. What the market will allow Quantum
You're
to do.
over time, Mr.
Yeah, I'm
Orlings. Could you
finishing.
wrap it up, please?
Yes, I'm finishing. What the market will allow
Now?
Quantum to do, as it would want to do, is one question. The needs of
Hey,
Greenbelt
thank you.
residents and residents of Berwyn Heights
you
and
wanna go
residents
ahead?
of the area are another thing, and I think you ought to take that into consideration as well.
Well, I appreciate your comments, and we'll take them into consideration. We look forward to speaking with you more.
Okay. Are there other questions or comments? I want to circle back, just so, in terms of the footprint left by CAP and community engagement, I just want to comment that community engagement has not stopped. Janubi and your staff, every single weekend there are community health fairs, there are information sessions. There's always something going on at Beltway Plaza for residents and for others. So I commend you on that. You don't really see that happening necessarily in other retail developments. So
Plan to continue that, and Kenny's going to bring some fresh ideas, and we're going to continue with the Labor Day parade, for instance, and all these things that we've been doing. We want to continue and expand if we can.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, and again, I feel like I'm asking questions that may not completely have answers, but thinking about, I think you could discuss the idea of what it was like 50 years ago, but what it is now in the back there is a parking lot. And so I personally love the idea of taking something that is a big impervious surface parking lot, and even if, yes, there are some buildings being put in there, there will be more green space than there is now. But I guess the follow-up question to that is, do you have plans as you're seeking financing or seeking partners for actually building the building to do environmentally friendly, sustainable design, even LEED certified, or taking some efforts toward that? Is that something that you have in mind towards building those buildings?
Definitely. I think we committed to LEED Gold at a minimum. I thought silver was what we were going to end up with, but maybe we went for, did I say gold? I apologize. Bronze, I think, is what we committed to, and we were aiming for silver for this first building. And it's important for the developers, for the residents, and it's important for us. Hate to use the word market again, but it is partly driven by the market and what we're able to get approved. We would like it to be as environmentally as possible. We're certainly, we want to support that as much as we can, and we believe that this redevelopment in the back is going to be a much better use than asphalt. It'll improve it dramatically. The asphalt was only there because of a county regulation that required it. It was really never used, and so we're really excited about the future of that area.
And that actually makes me think of doing some studies of temperature in urban heat island and comparing that now compared to later. It'd be good to get some baseline data now.
Yeah, Mr. Roberts.
Well, there's one thing, when the discussion kind of, clicked on me, because There's one thing about, the back of the mall right now. It doesn't require any services from the city. It doesn't require more police. It doesn't require more schools. Doesn't require more recreation space. Doesn't require all these things that cost the taxpayers in Greenbelt a lot of money. People cost money.
I appreciate that.
So, when you think about, 2,500 apartments, that's a huge bite for the city to take off. And hence my disapproval for 2,500 apartments at Beltway Plaza. I mean, personally, I wouldn't want to, we talk about senior housing, but I would feel sorry for a senior person that would have to, live in the back parking lot of a mall and look at the side of the mall every day. That's not where I want to end up, as a senior citizen, to tell you the truth. That's really not the atmosphere I would want, but, that's me. There's different people want different stuff, but as I said, services are a big thing. And at one point, which it might happen in the future, Spring Hill Lake, Franklin Park, wanted to double the size of their complex to 6,000 spaces. And the reason that died is because not only did they not want to build first of all, they wanted the school system to give them the existing Spring Hill Lake school site, give it to us. And so not only did they not want to build another school, the county did a survey and found out not only did they need one new school, they would need 2 elementary schools for the amount of density that they wanted to put in there. And the developer sat right here and told us, we don't even want a school in our community. That's what they wanted. They wanted to get rid of the school site. They didn't even want to have a school. And here the county saying, well, you got to have 2 schools. So the county, fortunately, the county did something decent in that site and did not give them the school site, and that killed their project because they couldn't go anywhere. They killed it themselves, really. It wasn't anything else. They killed it out of their own greediness. Is what they did.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't. I think you're going a little bit over the line.
Well, I have a right
some
to
of the
my
things.
opinion, and I've been
Certainly
and
do.
I've been
I
around,
remember-
and
I
I've
remember
listened,
what
I've
happened as
listened to
well.
all the discussions.
there.
And everything else.
but thank you.
Long before you came along.
No, I was
Yes.
there at those
Okay,
charrettes.
well,
I
then-
was.
Then you
yeah.
should understand.
Wasn't on council though.
What happened.
So,
in
and I
that-
do
in
understand what
that,
happened, but I don't want to interrupt you.
instance.
Please finish.
So, that's the thing. And, this is all about services that we have to provide for our citizens. That's why a lot of people over the years have come to Greenbelt, because we do that. But if we get to the point to where we can't do that, because the density is just so great, and it will happen, because all you have to do is look at all the communities around us that have this super high density, and they cannot provide the services that their citizens want. The crime around here is out of control. The taxes are out of control. So, yeah, it's a big deal. The parking lot, to me, right now, looks just fine because we don't have to pay any money to have it. There's no services required for that parking lot, thank God. And in the future, that's probably not going to be the case.
Well, I appreciate the comment. I would say that asphalt doesn't generate any income for taxes for the city either. So there's a balance there that is often looked at when these projects are considered. And I think our type of development that we're looking at doing for these first 750 units is actually probably going to be beneficial to the city economically. It could be argued both ways. But the type of tenant that typically rents the type of apartments that we're building are generally young individuals, generally don't have kids, generally need relatively few services. The value of the buildings are substantial, and I think will generate a substantial amount of tax revenue. I understand the argument that it will take some more services, but I think on balance, it may actually provide a positive financial situation for the city.
development says. And it's never been the case, and it never will be the case. That's
So
all it is.
there is a very big concern that we have, though, not specifically with Beltway Plaza, but yes, with this project. And that is adequate public facilities with schools in particular. Throughout Prince George's County, they're the population is growing, and the school system is not able to keep up with the construction of new buildings. So as you propose this kind of project, and I don't know, Councilmember McKinney, you're probably going to ask this question about the schools, were you not?
Actually, I was going to ask another question, but that is another question that I had, so go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, the first question I was actually going to ask was, well, one, thank you for sharing this information. I think it's been enlightening, especially for us younger members on council or newer members on council, let me say that. How do we ensure that we're getting more regular updates and communication from you all on the process and the phases that are going through? I know, we have council work sessions, but if there are other ways that we can get that information to be able to provide that to the community, having communication with the merchants as well as the community members, specifically the community that's around Beltway Plaza, I think is important. So we want to figure out what's the best way we can do that. So who would be responsible for that? And what are your thoughts around how we can make sure that we're getting more regular communication?
Well, I'm happy to provide my email, and Kenny and Alex would too. Maybe we start a group email or something that we could communicate with. We're very available. We are, as Kenny mentioned, quite busy with our properties, and we're hands-on, and so I apologize if maybe we haven't communicated as well as we should, but we certainly are available anytime. You can have my cell phone, my email. These guys will provide that cell phone and email, and we're here anytime you want to give us a call, and we'll try to be better about giving you a heads up on what's coming next.
And speaking of communicating with the surrounding areas, I know there was a little bit of tension between Franklin Park and Quantum over this project, and I was just wondering, what's the status of that, and are you working together well?
I think there's a disconnect maybe between the park on the ground, and the ownership in New Jersey. The ownership filed several lawsuits, as I'm sure you're aware, to challenge the Beltway Plaza project, which they saw as competition, I think. They lost at the administrative level, and then they lost in the circuit court level, and they appealed to the Court of Special Appeals, and they lost there. There were three. I think we're waiting on one final decision from the Court of Special Appeals, but we anticipate that will be the same. I think that said, we work well with the management on the ground of Franklin Park in terms of the day-to-day. So, like I said, I think there's a disconnect there, but by and large, we're pretty considerate neighbors, and we're interacting well with the people on the ground across the street.
Very good. That's very, very important. So just sort of wrapping up, I'm wondering what, in terms of your interactions with the county, are there any issues that you're having with Prince George's County that we could somehow be helpful with? And you mentioned, I know there was an issue with WSSC a while back.
I think that's our biggest issue that maybe you could help have some positive impact on. And I think you had personally maybe reached out to WSSC, I mean, you yourself, a year and a half ago, maybe, with CAPS prodding a little bit and letting you guys know what was going on. And because the water main in front of the center is part of, it's in their easement, it's owned by them, and it probably breaks 2 to 3 times a year. And it's part of a replacement schedule, but they have to design it, and they haven't worked on that yet. And so any help you could give us with that would be great, pushing that along, because it continues to blow up. The shops have to shut down. It disturbs the parking lot. There's sediment everywhere. It's just a real mess. So WSSC would be the only one I would ask you to, maybe if you could have some influence with, that would be great. But
Was that-
Prince George's County, we really haven't had any issues with.
Very good, very good. Was that related to, in any way, to the, water main that was replaced actually within Greenbelt Road? They
No,
did-
that's completely separate.
completely separate.
Yeah, this is a main that comes in by Giant, runs all along the front road right up by the mall, all the way to Target, and then up to like behind Wendy's.
Right.
That's all a public main, and it's very old and it's failing.
That's been going on for like a decade,
Yeah.
at least, right? Because I mean,
Absolutely.
when I was a reporter, I remember writing stories about this. And
Absolutely.
I've been
And
that
it
for a
just
long
blew up again month and a half ago.
Well, we'll see if we can help out.
That'd be great.
And
Thank
anything
you.
that I can do, I'll certainly try and do. Speaking of Wendy's, I guess Wendy's was going under a sort of a facelift or something, and it looks like, is it
No,
open
it's gonna
again?
Reopen.
Yeah, well, I think they had a little bit of a challenge getting a couple things done, but they've worked all those out, and they have pretty much completed everything. They repaved the lot, thankfully, because that lot was a bit of a mess, and we've been on them, and I think you guys have been on them with your inspectors, so that's finally resolved, and they have a nice new building. They actually did a lot with the facade, and they did some work inside. I haven't been inside to see it personally yet, but my understanding is it's all new inside too.
Yeah, it looks pretty good on the outside. Are they going to be open 24 hours a day? The one other Wendy's locations in Greenbelt are in fact open 24 hours a day.
Oh, really? I don't know what their plans are for their
Is
time.
that the gas station, Crown, wasn't
Royal Farms?
yeah, Royal Farms, they're open 24 hours a day, too, yeah. Yeah. Okay, hey, anything, council, any additional questions or thoughts that you want to share? I just want to express our appreciation for working closely with our planning department, working closely with the city manager. I urge you to get to know John Mason, our new economic development person, who I'm sure will be knocking on your doors and getting your email contact. If you probably already has done that. Beltway Plaza, Quantum Corporation, you are important corporate citizens of ours, and we take that relationship, you take that relationship very, very seriously in the past, and we look forward to continuing to collaborate with you and working as partners to achieve the best for our residents and our neighbors.
Yeah, this is our biggest property and our most important, and we really enjoy working with the city of Greenbelt, and we look forward to continuing to develop that relationship and continue it into the future.
Very good, very good. Mr. Samaron?
Thank you. We appreciate working with you. We appreciate the relationship. We'll continue to push WSSC. We have our own challenges with them, and that's an ongoing issue for all of us in the city. But you guys do so much for the city. We've just recently we hosted our job fair, and we had a ton of people come out, and we look forward to that relationship among all the other things that we partner on. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much. So we've got a few information items to deal with. You're welcome to leave. I think some residents want to, and is there a question? Yeah, go, good, please.
Yes, my name's Claudia Jones. I live on Laurel Hill Road. I just have one question. Throughout this whole construction and redevelopment, are the bus routes going to change?
Short term, the answer is no, but WMATA has a better bus plan, and they have a long-term vision of bus service throughout the region. So some of the routes that had formerly been WMATA, been Prince George's County, at some point may shift over to from Prince George's County to WMATA. It's a little confusing. And, over time, this circulator road and exactly how buses would stop through Beltway Plaza, that's an open question. I know it's kind of challenging for the buses, the R12 and the G14, to actually make their way into the parking lot and go underneath the deck. But I know of no plans short term to change that around. Ms. Ruby, do you know of anything?
I think that better bus
Yeah, but that's like 5 years out.
But Lamont is aware of the plans and are going to engage at the.
And we're constantly trying to make sure they keep the bus routes onto Beltway Plaza property because we think it's important to the community. So they wanted to cut it off completely at one point and not come onto the property at all, but we've tried to fight with them and make sure they come on in as many routes as possible. So we welcome them.
Yeah, and one final thing that I'd like to mention to you, to be observant. We're sort of having some real challenges with the county around fire and EMS protection, and there have been some changes in staffing at our Greenbelt station and also at the Berwyn Heights station. I'm not sure that you are aware of the changes, but we've been assured by the county that there's adequate service, but we're very concerned about response time and a number of issues around that. So I'll have to share some information with you about that, perhaps. So we've got some information items. You're free to go. I think some residents, some people may want to talk to you a little bit, but thank you.
All right, thank you guys. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Okay, information items. Who wants to go first?
Mine are quick.
Okay.
So there was a Sustainable Maryland Executive Committee meeting last week, and then just today they put out their sustainability action grants from Sustainable Maryland. So this is in addition to the PEPCO grants that they've administered. They're not huge grants, but they're some for various things that would be sort of in line with the Sustainable Maryland. So that's something I already forwarded it to make sure that Josue and Carrie had that information. But that just came out. And then there was a Transportation Planning Board meeting today. No votes taken, nothing of that. But the presentations, one was about the Regional Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Implementation Strategy, which has been out for a bit, but this was just sort of a broad overview. And I think I already sent to Josue and to Council the sort of the maps that show the priority areas for EV chargers. But that was kind of interesting to look at. And then the other thing was about some surveys of airline passengers and things and where they're coming from, how many are taking public transit, where that sort of thing. But that was kind of interesting, but not necessarily quite as directly relevant. So those were my two information items.
Well, I would venture to speculate that more airline passengers would be coming through Greenbelt had it not been for WMATA's decision to eliminate the B30 bus that came directly here from BWI Airport.
Yeah, I don't think they were asking at that granular detail. They were asking sort of broadly how many people took public transit versus private cars versus rentals or ride shares or things like that. But the comparisons they were doing, because that B30 bus hasn't been running for 5 years? Yeah. So I think most of the surveys they presented actually wouldn't include that anyway, because that hasn't been running for a long time.
No, it hasn't. But they need to bring that back. There needs to be more than one connection to BWI Airport, other than having everything go through New Carrollton, just from a homeland security. That's my personal opinion. But okay.
I mean, if you want to dig into it, the presentation of the new information they just presented of their survey is on the COG website. So if you need a little bedtime reading, you can go and find that.
You do that tonight when you're at home.
Okay,
those were the only two things that I had.
After I finish the
I may look that up too, but not right now. Let's just move on.
Okay, other information items. I just wanted to share that there's a PGCMA meeting tomorrow, Fairmount Heights. And I don't know if anybody has, well, no, we can't really talk about the fact that you're going to get appointed to as co-chair of one of the committees. We can't talk about that. But I will probably attend. I think it's really the first meeting of the year, so I would urge many of you, all of you, to come to that. I know there's going to be some lively discussion around the presentation that may happen at the next PGCMA meeting.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's the Greenbelt Station Homeowners Association annual meeting, so Danielle and I will be there. So I think we will both miss that meeting, but we'll look forward to the report out.
Oh yeah, what time does that start?
7.
7 o'clock. So it's the same time. So there's not going to be a way to.
Okay.
I cannot be in two places at once.
And Franklin Park is a resident town hall that's starting at 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
I have an HOA meeting as well.
Yeah. Is that right? So many places, so little time.
Let's see, what time does it start, Emmett?
7. It may start at 6. Is 7?
I think,
But there's this important topic that's going to come up, and we need to,
yeah, I
we
think
need to be
PTC
there.
when it comes up at
Big
7.
time. We really need to be there.
Okay, let me text you and then maybe if I feel
If you're
good.
feeling, yeah,
If I
okay.
feel good, but then you have to pick me up probably.
Okay. It's nice to have you back. Let's see, Jenny.
I just wanted to bring up the MML Municipal Achievement Awards. The deadline for submission for those is September 25th at noon. And we could submit ourselves for any projects or policies related to community engagement, sustainability, diversity and inclusion, or e-government. We can just submit ourselves for an award, and there's some criteria and ways to do that. If we have any programs we think would qualify for that, I think it'd be great to participate.
We definitely have programs that would probably win. It's just a question of putting together the application.
And then the other thing is that the MML is also currently, I'm on the MML conference committee, as I think you all know. So MML is currently soliciting workshop proposals for the summer 2025 conference. I know folks had ideas about that. I believe I sent the link out to you. But this is kind of the time, if you would like to submit a proposal, the time is kind of now to do that. So
What is the deadline, Jenny?
I don't know what the deadline is. The deadline is November 1st. There you go. So think about it, and I sent you guys the link so that you can submit. And I don't know if we want to discuss that as a council at some point first, but just to put that in everybody's minds. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, did I close my last one? Is that I sent this to council earlier, but I got a text from a citizen today about an emergency that they had here in Greenbelt on one of the courts. She said there was an emergency today. A contractor was spraying for bees and went into anaphylactic shock. My neighbor called 911, and 3 of them did chest compressions until EMS came. It took them 15 minutes to respond.
Oh, my God.
So I just bring that up because obviously that's terrible. And at what she had said to me, she said, all I could imagine was that like my 6-year-old was choking on a grape and I'm waiting 15 minutes. But I bring it up just because we have been asking for the raw data, and this is why I think we really need it, because maybe the average looks good, but maybe that's because they have some that are really short, but they have many that are really long, response times that are really long. And if we can't look at the, raw data, we don't really know. And I know that all of you have heard anecdotal response times like this as well. So I think it's just really concerning, and I wanted to raise that flag for all of council that this happened just today.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, average isn't good enough.
Right.
And, 8 minutes, is too long in the case of a 6-year-old choking on a grape or whatever.
Right.
So, it's just unconscionable. And we so need to have decent communication around public safety, and with the fire department and EMS. So access to raw data, it comes down to communication, and just having these channels open so that we know and we can see and we can do things. There are things that we are capable of helping with, but without those timely dialogues with the county on issues, when we can make a change and find compromises and ways to work together to address problems, it's just not possible. Mr. Samron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a good time to bring up an update on the litigation. Just today, we received news that yesterday the judge denied the county's motion to dismiss the case. So that allows us to move forward. The next steps for us is to move into the discovery, and we have a long list of records that we are asking for. Obviously, the first one on the list is things that we've been asking since early June, which is the raw data that justified the summer staffing plan, which at the time it was very clear to us that it would be a temporary summer plan.
So we were told.
There's redundancy in even just the title, temporary and summer. Summer's almost over, if not, it's already over. So the case moves forward, and we remain optimistic that we will have some resolution, whether that's through the court or we continue to reiterate that we see the county as a partner and we want to work this collaboratively in a partnership.
To start. So, any other information items?
I have another one. We received good news that as of today, we received a deed for the armory.
Whoa!
Finally.
Finally. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's exciting news. I'll be on site tomorrow, making sure that the facility is secured.
Sure.
Yes,
There's been some vandalism there, frankly, recently.
Recently and for some time now, and so I hope to work with code enforcement to hold off the inspectors on us.
Okay. Hey, if there's no additional news for the good of the order, let's go ahead and call it a night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ruby.